You're listening to Arsenal Pass, a flesh and blood podcast for players by players. And all about strategy, leveling up, and the latest news in the world of Wraith. Welcome to Arsenal Pass.
Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 223 of Arsenal Pass. Hayden here with Pankaj, Bhojwani. As always, I'm back from the Pro Tour. Pankaj is still in Singapore. That's why he looks like he's sitting ever so still if you're watching our video stream. Pankaj, how are you?
Doing well. Pro Tour weekend was fun, as usual. Feeling a little bit vindicated, because it felt like I was shouting into the void that, guys, this deck is broken. And then 4 of them show up in the top 8, so a little bit vindicated about that. How are you doing?
He's already starting. I'm feeling good. I feel like Pro Tour weekend was. I mean, you can never go wrong being at a Pro Tour. I think it's always enjoyable, no matter what. And I had a particularly enjoyable weekend, I would say, at least by the end of things. And I just am sad that I had to fly in, fly out on this one, unfortunately, because I do love Singapore, but also it's the benefit of being so close to me that I could literally come in, leave work, fly into Singapore, get to my hotel, go to sleep, wake up the next morning on Thursday, and then I could leave Sunday evening and get home and still go to work on Monday. So very fortunate to be able to do that, but it just meant that it was also a kind of a bit of a no-brainer decision for me to just fly in, fly out on this one. So yeah, that's probably my only downside of things, I would say.
Yeah, that does make sense. So that's how I treat the US events as well. Because, I mean, for the number of events that we go to, there's kind of only so much we can take away from work and stuff, right?
100%.
So you have to pick and choose the events that you can actually stay back for and come in earlier for. And if it's near to you, it just feels like, as you said, like a no-brainer to just this is the one where it's going to come in and come out. Yeah, I treat the US events that way pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the same for me, right? It's basically the same as flying within the US. No, I mean, it's not quite. It's eight hours for me, but that's close from being in Australia, as opposed to if I want to get to the US, where it's minimum 15 hours, East Coast 24 hours almost. So, you know.
Yeah.
Let's get into things, and I think a little bit of a different structure to the pod this week. We won't necessarily have our normal, segment structure, but we are going to talk through the Pro Tour. We're going to recap everything that went on from each of our sides, of course. Pankaj in the booth, behind the mic, casting the full event, seeing it all unfold, all the narratives. Myself, a lot more removed from that, so I'm still catching up on a lot of the narratives of the event. I just have my perspective from being in the hall as a player, which I think now after sitting on the casting side last time at London, it feels so different, which is quite interesting. So we'll also share from my side, of course, recap my event. I thought, why don't we start from your side, because I think that really lays the foundation of the bigger picture. I think yourself being there the whole weekend, watching everything unfold.
Okay. So let's see. So first things first, I think one difference on the coverage side of things, and maybe perhaps people who are a little bit more in tune with the coverage team probably know this, but the whole coverage team was in a separate room this time rather than in just a separate coverage area, but in the same hall. We had a whole different room, which was pretty. It was interesting. It was a different experience for sure. I think some of us have a little bit of mixed opinions on how that felt for us, like energy-wise, for example. So we'll be curious to see whether we continue that. It could also just be a case of, the first time. It's a change, and so maybe we just need to get used to the change. There's pluses and minuses for being fully removed. In a sense, fully removed from the event. So it did make it so when I wanted to come out to catch up with people, I found myself doing just moving a lot more than I normally have to. And, exit this room and come out into a play area, catch up with people, and get back. And they'll be like, "Oh no, we delayed going on 15 minutes or whatever." Then I'm like, "Okay," and you, go all the way back out again and be like, "Hey guys, I'm back," and catch up with people and stuff.
You can't just pop your head around the curtain and see oh, is that okay? There's still okay. We got time. I'm gonna keep chatting.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, other than that, coverage was fun. This was obviously the return of the PT LA coverage team. So me and Sam as one duo, and then Uber Shouts, or Mitch Leslie and Brian as the other duo, which is, I mean, the coverage team is it's a pretty awesome coverage team.
Definitely.
And just like LA actually got to do one game with Uber, it wasn't a live
the
game,
calling,
but we
right?
did the call
Yeah.
finals, which is now on the official YouTube channel. So it was really fun to be able to get a caster game with him. So Proto itself, I mean, I'm not sure what else there is to say aside from stuff that was already covered. I mean, that was already like just in the coverage.
What about from your perspective?
Cool.
Like, so I'm curious. So maybe, obviously, our listeners will know you've been in Singapore for, over a week leading up to the event. You've kind of spent some time there, being, of course, your home city, your hometown. But what did it look like for you? I know the team that you're a part of, that you test with, and your friends flew in earlier in the week. What did you guys get up to? What did that sort of process look like in terms of how you were involved through like the Wednesday, Thursday? What did you think of Keynote? Like, just kind of maybe take us through it by day. I'd be curious to hear from your perspective.
Cool. I'll start from Tuesday. So Tuesday, I invited the team over, and it's Team Stroop Waffle. I invited them over to my place, actually. I booked out this function room area that like the condominium has, and I was like, we can play test here. And I live near the beach. So
Nice.
we took a walk down the beach to, and Singaporeans would know this East Coast Lagoon Food Village, which is this massive hawker center like here in Singapore. It's more of it's like less touristy than like the ones like in the middle of the country. So I brought them there, and I told everyone to just sit down and do nothing while I order all the food, because I don't trust any of them to order the food. And it was great. It was awesome. I think everyone had a great time. And we came back to my place and continued jamming games in the function room. So that was Tuesday. Wednesday, I went over to the hotel. They were staying somewhere near Chinatown.
Oh yeah, I
It was
missed
actually
you.
the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the same hotel where a bunch of your teammates were staying at. Like we saw Nick Butcher and Tarak Patel and all that in the
Yeah.
the
I
lobby
wasn't
area
staying
while jamming
there.
games.
I wasn't staying there, but
Yeah,
I was there on Thursday for testing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I went there. I just jammed games with them there and watched them draft and everything, which was awesome. They did this really cool thing where they were doing like a limited review, like a draft review, like every day as well as part of limited testing, which was
Nice.
awesome to be a part of as well. I think it helped me a lot on the coverage side of things as well. Actually, minor segue related to that. I was surprised at a difference in card evaluation regarding Gold Hunter Light Sail. My
interesting.
team really likes that card, and it felt like when I was reviewing, like when we were watching on coverage and stuff, it felt like Gold Hunter Light Sail was maybe not as picked by other people, even at the top tables, and I was a little bit surprised by that. I think that card is a bit of a sleeper. Like,
That's
very, very good.
interesting. I think our team like that card as well. I mean, not like crazy high, right? Like not like a like an early sort of pick, but like the sort of thing where you pick it up because it plays a fairly reasonably at times important role in your deck, and it's a good card to have. I think. Would that be a similar evaluation? Yeah.
Well, we wouldn't. I think in our internal drafts, we wouldn't expect to be able to wheel that card.
Oh, interesting.
At
Okay.
the top tables,
Yeah.
it was wheeling.
It definitely
I'll
does
put
wheel.
it that way. That like, yeah, and that was a surprising thing. I think the card evaluation,
Okay.
right? Like that was a little bit different. Anyway, so that was how. Anyway, so that was like Wednesday. Thursday was a little bit, at least on my side, just a little bit. I was removed from the team because Wednesday night I checked into Sentosa, but people who weren't involved in coverage or like involved in like the back end weren't allowed into the hall until 5 p.m.
Yes.
So I was on Sentosa, and I was like in the hall. I was hanging out with the rest of the coverage team. I was kind of just like chilling there. I actually jammed some games at Hayden from
Nice.
free floating, because he's involved in the coverage side of things. He does the little like video recaps at the end
All
of
the
every
B-roll
round,
and
which is
everything.
Super cool, by
It's
the way.
so cool.
Which are absolutely amazing. Yeah, and
Yeah.
like he like churns them out like instantly because the game ends and we like have the B-roll ready. He's an actual wizard on that. So
Also, shout out to
Yeah, so-
Aiden.
so-
Also directs like a lot of the trailers for Flesh and Blood as well, for the new set trailers, like High Seas trailer. I think he directed that one. I'm pretty sure I was speaking to him about that. Like he has a big role in a lot of what he's gotten a few contracts for LSS, which is pretty cool, I think, and what they do, and of course everything that 3 Floating does, which is amazing.
Yeah, so it was really cool. So anyway, so I was just there with like the other coverage people, and like Ethan and Nathan were like setting up, and like Sam was doing some organizational stuff. I was kind of just chilling. I jammed some games with Aiden. We discovered that Puffin is very favored into Marlin, which is unfortunate.
Interesting.
But I mean,
Okay.
but Puffin's kind of
Probably don't have to worry
because
about that.
Puffin's really bad into like Slippy and Syndra and
Yeah.
stuff. So it's like, wow, Anyway, so that was kind of just my Thursday until people started coming in for the keynote, and I could hang out with them again, jam games with them again. So that was fun. And Friday Pro Tour started.
Nice. What?
Okay,
There you go. No.
I guess I just want to go over like one narrative of the Pro Tour, which I'm sure we'll get to in the main topic. The one thing for me that I think unfolded as we got to top 8 is that I actually think this might be a 2-deck format. Like, I think coming into the weekend, people were like, oh, I mean, you and I too, were like, oh, there's 5 to 6 decks you can choose from. The narrative when we started the weekend was very like, oh yeah, it's a very open open meta and stuff. As it started to coalesce and we were trying to pick the feature matches, like day 2, on day 2, it was like, man, every table has a Gravy or a Slippy in it, and I'm starting to think this meta is actually kind of like Amsterdam. Amsterdam was what? It was Zen and New. Well, it's Gravy and Slippy. It's starting to feel to me like it's just a 2-deck format.
And makes sense, right? To me, I think that happens most of the time at Pro Tours. Like we do coalesce to sometimes 1, sometimes 2. Very rarely 3 decks that feel like the best decks in the format. And by the time we get to the Pro Tour, the best players in the world have been tuning and testing these lists, right? It's quite far and away often the case, I think. I think what was interesting about this one is that it was quite like we spoke about, like we didn't necessarily say that we thought all 5 or 6 of these decks were good choices necessarily or super viable. We felt like they were a step above everything else necessarily as options, or at least that's the way they've been positioned by the players over the national season.
Yeah, but it starts to feel like within this 5 or 6, there's 2 of them, which is a step above the others as well. It's kind of the...
Yeah, I think that's natural. It does make a lot of sense, and I think we'll obviously talk more about what that looked like, and then also I think maybe we'll end this pod on where to next as well. To be honest,
for sure. Cool. So that was my recap. Friday to Sunday, I mean, that was like all coverage. So like, I'm not sure what else there is to say aside from what was literally in there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
And I give my perspective on like the meta, I guess. Yeah. So talk to us about your side.
Yeah. So to recap from my side, I flew in. I basically left work on Wednesday, went straight to the airport here in Sydney, jumped on my flight. Nice smooth sailing all the way through to Singapore. I love Singapore Airport. Changi Airport is like so easy to get in and out of. It's so close to everything, right? In Singapore, it's a 15-minute drive. It's just so convenient comparative to most places in the world. Was in my hotel by like 12:30 in the morning, 1 a.m. or something. Slept, got up in the morning, went straight to via getting a bit of breakfast. Always got to get a bit of breakfast. Straight to the hotel where a lot of the PCG Invasion, in fact, the rest of PCG Invasion, apart from myself and Dan Mackay, because we booked super early, were...
Pause real quick. What breakfast?
What breakfast did I eat? Oh, no.
Did you get kaya toast?
Actually, no, I did.
Okay, good.
But I also
Carry
got...
on.
I got some like eggs and stuff as well.
Yeah, the soft-boiled eggs that goes with it. Okay, good.
I actually got fried eggs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I was at like a half Western, half Singaporean like breakfast place basically. It was pretty nice though. And so yeah, did some testing. I was dooming, man, honestly. Like, I rocked up. When we recorded the pod last week, obviously still didn't really know what I was going to play. I said it was probably going to be, one of those top 3 decks. I think I'd narrowed down to like just being like, I need to play a deck that I can at least pilot, honestly, at this point. I just didn't focus my testing enough. We can talk lessons learned later on. So I was like, I'm going to play Syndra or Slippy, I think. And basically play some games with Syndra into Slippy. I'm like, oh man, this is so miserable. Play some games with like Slippy, and I'm like, you know what? I actually find this deck a lot of fun. I've played with it a little bit of testing. All the rest of the PCG Invasion were basically a similar position, honestly, of like dooming a little bit. So some of them played Syndra, some of them played Gravy. Me and Dan played Slippy. So there's like 12, maybe 10 people, 12 people. I'd say half played Syndra. Tarek Patel and Evan Herndon, former US national champion, played Gravy. And then like Matt Rogers played Kasai with Matthew Dilks. They both landed up on Kasai. So there's a bit of a spread in the end, people jumping off decks and sort of unsure where to go, I think. So I ended up on Slippy, which I felt pretty good about. I literally just registered Xavier McLean's Japanese national winning list. I didn't make a single change for the Pro Tour. I just registered exactly his list. But that didn't come until the evening, basically.
Yeah, I remember you telling me, I think day one of the PT, you're like, I just registered Xavier's exact Nats list. It was funny because I was chatting with Xavier, and he's part of True Waffle as well now. We were chatting, and he was talking about all these changes he was making to the list. Like him and Peter Budensek were like working together quite a bit on that. And then you told me you ran the exact same thing. I was like, huh, they've like moved like away from that, like so, a fair bit, like as much as you can move in this game, where and then you're like, nah, I think this is still a better one. I was like, that's so interesting.
Yeah, Xavier like kindly was talking to myself and Dan. We know Xavier from way back. He used to live in the same city as us in New Zealand, and he was like, "Yeah, I've made some changes and things, and I think I'm gonna play this." And I was like, "So I think like Blanche was like a thing that a few people were on, a few different groups. I know Xavier landed on Blanche, and I was like, I've tested that card and I didn't like it, so I'm just gonna play the list that I was just jamming with as a Gauntlet deck because I think it's actually really clean. I did make some changes." Like there's some changes I would make, like having played it, but basically that's where I landed. But I didn't land on that until like I basically went to the keynote speech at like 5 or whatever. And was like, right, I'm gonna play Slippy. I need to work out which cards I'm going to obviously end up playing, what configuration I'm gonna end up playing. But I was just still panicking a little bit, so I literally got to so everyone had to go on the Thursday and check in. By the way, the venue was amazing. It was in Sentosa, which is maybe not the most ideal thing from like a getting in and out perspective because it's a resort sort of island. It's this, this island slightly, you can drive there, but it's a little bit awkward. You can kind of get to a shopping center and then take this like monorail, and then you've got to walk a little bit. So basically we kind of just like got grabs/Ubers there every day. But the venue itself was awesome. It was so nice. It was huge. There was carpet on the floor, which makes a big difference to like the usual convention centers that are just concrete on the floor. It was very clean. It was beautiful. They had some nice food on site as well. They had an amazing setup for watching coverage as well. They had like 2 big screens with seating areas. They had a massive stage for the keynote, and for the cosplay contest. Honestly, it was awesome. So that was great. But I basically got to about 6 o'clock after checking in and was like, right, I need to go get some food, and then I need to go and basically work out all my sideboard plans. And I hadn't played a mirror game at that point. And this will become very relevant later on as I talk through my weekend. I hadn't played a mirror game of Slippy. So I said to Dan, I was like, we need to go back and we need to play some mirrors because I have a feeling that Slippy is probably going to be the most played deck tomorrow. It's definitely like rising from what we spoke about on the pod where we said on the pod, right, one of 3 decks going to be the most played. I think we both had Slippy second or third. We didn't have it first. I think by the time we got to the weekend, it was pretty clear that a lot of people were landing on Slippy. So I was like, right, we've got to go play some mirrors. So basically, we went to when we got some food, went to Maxwell, to the hawker center there. Nice. Got some food, and then went back and built sideboard plans, played some mirrors, which was very, very helpful and relevant. And then went to bed and like sleeved up, went to bed and went to the Pro Tour the next day, not feeling particularly amazing, but feeling good where I landed on Slippy, but not feeling fantastic about draft, to be honest. I was hoping that I would get in and be able to do like 1 or 2 drafts just to kind of, because I hadn't drafted in a week or so. I was mostly focusing on CC and some work stuff over the last week. And I was like, right, need to get in, play some drafts. Didn't get the chance to do so, but did land on a deck that I was at least happy with. So that was the Thursday into the Friday, Pankaj.
So I have 2 questions regarding that. Number 1, just coming back to the Kasai piece real quick. Of your teammates that landed on Kasai, did they actually find that they were favored into Gravy?
I don't know.
Because okay, cool. Because I was like, I thought that would be their reason to bring her, but I don't know. I've been slowly being like, not slowly. I think I mentioned last week as well. I'm pretty sure Warrior is just cope into Gravy and not. And looking at the data, actually, I think she went. Also, shout out Fab Blazing for having like awesome like data, like tournament specific data, so you can go look at win rates, like a matchup matrix for like between these heroes at specifically Pro Tour.
Yeah,
because I went 1-6 into Gravy at the Pro Tour.
Yeah,
for like a 15% win rate, which is kind of what I'm expecting. I don't actually think the deck's going into Gravy, so I'm curious, did your team find something different and that's why they chose it?
I actually don't know, because I didn't realize Matt Dilks had chosen to lock in Kasai. Like, he is someone who's like 3 or 4, maybe even a week out. He's like, I'm just locking. Like, he'll be super prepared. He just kind of chills. He doesn't get too stressed out the day before. Like, he's sorted. And Matt was like flip-flopping, Mr. Matt Rogers, and he eventually landed on Kasai and sort of joined Matt, because I think originally he was going to play Syndra. Oh, well, I don't know what I think at some one point he's going to play Dorinthia. And to be fair, I do think Dorinthia does have a good Gravy matchup, but I think for instance, your Slippy matchup is not good. So I think it's a very tough choice to play that. And a bunch of other matchups aren't. Verdance is basically unwinnable, I think. So there's so many matchups where it's like, do you really, Prism, I don't think is a good matchup. There's so many things where it's like, do you really want to be playing that hero?
Yeah, I mean, you beat only Gravy, and that's it.
I kind of think that's true, honestly.
Oh, and
Syndra.
Sorry,
Syndra.
You
Yeah.
beat Syndra.
So if it was...
actually, I'm not even sure if you beat Syndra, you kind of chop the game into Syndra, it feels like. You're kind of like 50.
So
maybe it's slightly flavored, like slightly, but...
Yeah, I think you're favored, but it does depend on, like, have they played the matchup and do they have, like, the D-React package and stuff, like the right D-React package,
Yeah. But since Slippy is around, they probably do have the D-React, so it's...
I think so too. You had another question?
Yes, the other question was regarding the Slippy mirror.
Yes.
Because I was going to say, okay, you're like, oh, you haven't jammed the mirror, but
Yeah.
I feel like, you can correct me if I'm wrong. It doesn't feel like the Slippy mirror doesn't have that much agency, it feels like. Like, there is some, there are some things you should know about, but it does feel like it's a lot of, okay, one person got put in the blender and then just was in a blocking pattern, and then if the other person breaks on disruption, then you can get back in, but isn't anything very active you can do to be like, okay, cool, I'm getting myself out of this blender that the opponents put me in.
No, I disagree. I think it's got a lot of play to it. I think it's one of the most interesting mirrors I've played in a very long time in Flesh and Blood, to be honest. I was actually speaking to, a friend of yours, Yuki, about it, and I said to her, I was like, is it just me? Like the Slippy matchup seems like the mirror seems quite interesting, and she agreed. I was also talking to Nia. Nia was also playing Slippy. Nia felt the same. So I think it is honestly a very interesting matchup. Like, I'll put it this way: often, so I got bonds twice in a game in the mirror early on, and I won that game. I was down 20 life, and I won that game. I think the matchup is very interesting. The way you can play very tight. You play to like specific in-game states, and if you are better at doing that than your opponent, you can often manufacture wins, even when it seems like you should be basically out of the game, which is quite interesting. So yeah, I think the mirror is very interesting.
I was talking basically the night before day 3, before the top 8 of Pro Tour. Jimmy Newen, who's on our team, made top 8 on Slippy, and his first match in quarterfinals was a Slippy mirror. So him and Peter Budensek were jamming the mirror again and again, and the conclusion we came away from it was, kind of like, yes, there's certain things you can play towards, but there is a lot of, it did sort of feel like the agency isn't perhaps quite as high as you would very much like it to be. So
there's definitely those games. Like, I did have one of those games. Like, there's these games where it's just like, your D-reacts don't line up into their reacts. They basically get to roll like multiple, or like, they just draw well. They're just like, hey, here's a bonds, here's a persuasive prognosis that I just happened to draw with a Just a Nick. Here's a turn where I got to basically flick you for free or something, or attack you with a dagger previous turn, and I've just drawn, take up the mantle with another attack reaction. Like, there's just there is just games like that. Or yes, my All Weeper Spinnerets came every single time after I flicked my dagger to do a pump over the top sort of thing. There is definitely games like that, but I think they're not. I don't know. I don't think they're as bad as, like, for instance, it's nothing like playing other aggressive mirrors like Syndra mirrors or anything like that. Like, the game goes second, sometimes third cycle. It can go even to fatigue in some situations. Like, it is correct, I think, to play above 60 cards in the mirror. Not by much, 62 to 63, I think. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting mirror. I'd be keen if people have been playing it, if they got any thoughts or what they think. But yeah, I do think it is more interesting than maybe I was going to give it credit for when I was like, oh, we should play some games so I understand this mirror match.
Sounds good. Cool. Then do you want to... so I believe you ended your recap so far on Friday, so should we go into that?
We go into Saturday. We got to the Pro Tour. I start off well, I'm starting off good. I get paired into Ira round 1, which I think is a good place to be. I think it's a good matchup for you. I play a mirror actually in round 2, where I am quite far behind in this matchup. Like, I've been bonzed a couple of times, managed to come back in that matchup actually and win that. So I'm starting off 2-1. I play another mirror where it is semi-tight, but I think, honestly, my opponent played slightly better than me and definitely got himself into a better position and won that game. It was reasonably close-ish, though. Something like 2-1, a couple of rounds left of CC, and then I pair into someone I believe is maybe local to you or close to you, Tyler, on Verdance.
Oh, yeah, yes. Yes, he runs a store in my area. Shout out Mindful Games.
Yeah. mindful games. So me and Tyler get paired, and the game is, I'd say, quite interesting. I feel like I'm quite far behind through the start of the game against Verdance. I think it's it's a tough matchup. I see he has evergreens. I'm like, I'm not going to try. I think there's a strategy where you can potentially try and fatigue Verdance. I don't think it's particularly good, but if they don't have evergreen, I think it can eventuate into that game state. But we basically go through the game, kind of trade. It feels like he's pretty far ahead, and then I kind of start to find some good hands, and I know that my pitch deck is actually pretty good for second cycle. So I'm like, maybe I can actually win this game if I can just keep my life total high enough. So I think he finds like his second or third felling. I just kind of throw my hand at it to preserve some life and get towards this end game. And then basically we're very much in the end game, but we're about to go to time. It's very close. And it ends up being that we go to a draw. We're both basically trying to play for the win. It goes to, I get the very last turn of the game. And the only way that he isn't dead is if so I've bonsed him earlier in the game and I know what's left in his deck. And he has a Seeds of Tomorrow in his deck, but he's just recently shuffled. And it could be somewhere, I think there's about 12 cards that it could be in. So, there's like a 30-something% chance it's in his hand. And I am like, well, I have to play to win here. Like the hand I have, he literally has to have the Seeds of Tomorrow to be able to get through this. But if I don't, then I think he might. I think he wins if he does have the seeds. I think he can kind of finish me off on a future turn. So I obviously don't concede. Tyler doesn't concede because he knows that his out as well. So he draws back up after his turn 0. I play. He has the seeds, and we end in a draw. Interestingly, after the game, we stop, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I actually just had the win. I think if I didn't think about the seeds and took a different line, I could have. I played Codex, and Codex gave him the card to be able to Seeds of Tomorrow. And if I didn't play the Codex, I could have just used it to swing my dagger, flick, and then because he has a no, he basically had to double block on the first attack. I know it's going to kill him. So anyway, it was a whole thing, but it was very interesting.
But hang on, wait, but that means in the world where he doesn't have the seeds, then that's the worst line, right?
No, because he has to go to 1 anyway. So, and so we worked out that he has to, no matter what. I think he has to go to 1. We worked it out afterwards. It was quite interesting.
Okay. Sure.
But yeah, it was cool. That is what it is. I think honestly, I've had draws in Flesh and Blood, and they never feel great. But that's the closest to a draw that feels reasonable. We were both playing to win, and it just
that makes sense.
Just didn't work out. And then so I'm at 2-1-1, which feels a little bit awkward. Last round of CC, get paired in. I get the old team kill. I get paired into Sean Dullywell. London top 8 competitor. He's on Syndra, and he's like, oh man, why did we get paired? He wins the die roll, which is a good start for Syndra into Slippy, and then I just proceed to honestly draw the worst hands of my life, and Sean just crushes me. It's not even close.
It feels like if Slippy loses that die roll, then it actually is a game.
It becomes a game for sure.
Slippy's still slightly favored, but it's very much a game. But if Slippy wins a die roll, it's absolutely not a game.
Yeah. So I'm feeling pretty low at this point. 2-2-1, 2 losses and a draw. I have to win out, right, to make day 2 at this point, and be live for, cash, effectively, barely even top 8, depending, I don't think I'll be live for top 8, it's just cash at that point. Go into draft, and I just feel like my draft preparation was not particularly great. I spent too much time drafting at the start, not adjusting towards drafting at the end. Didn't get in the final finishing drafts that I like to do to just refamiliarize myself with my strategies and things like that. I think I basically end up in a position where the person to my right, pack 1, pick 1, takes the only puffin card in the pack and is like, I'm puffing, get out of my way. Which I'm like, cool, that's fine by me. And then I think I get passed into, I'm trying to look towards a Marlin angle. It seems to be or off before the wheel. I move into gravy, and then I end up as one of 4 gravies, unfortunately. So definitely should have been. I probably should have been the puffin, honestly, or I guess the third Marlin. But yeah, that's where we ended up, and I end up losing round 1 and just decide not to play the last 2 rounds and get myself sorted for the calling. Honestly, feeling pretty down at that point, unfortunately. But is what it is.
Yeah, it happens. It totally happens. Sorry to hear that.
Hey, it's all good because you know what, Pankaj? We come back the next day.
You went out. I was saying, because you went out to party that night and you had a great time.
Well, I did go and hang out with friends that evening, and yeah, that was I had a great evening, and then I got to come back the next day and play more Flesh and Blood Classic Constructed, where I felt after playing those games with Arachne Slips with Cracks, I was like, I'm excited to play more Arachne. I'm quite enjoying this. We head to the calling, and I win round 1, and that's always a good start, Pankaj. You win round 1, you're like, right, I'm feeling good, feeling like I'm on the right deck here, good start. And then I lose the next 2, Pankaj.
Oh, no.
I am 1-2 in the calling. That is not a good place to be. I get absolutely battered by a Prism in round 3, who on 1 turn makes 6 spectral shields, which is not a nice feeling when you're trying to obviously throw daggers and pop things. So
how does Prism even do that?
Exactly. It was such a good draw. But
Genesis? Like,
no,
was Genesis left around?
It involved basically like my opponent had, as they put it, like a pretty cracked hand, but they had no yellow in it, so they effectively like Halo to like Hail Mary the yellow off the top.
And
to be fair, there's a lot of yellows in that deck, so
quite likely.
Yeah, very likely. So turns this hand into like a pretty crazy hand. Ends up coming with double Herald of Protection on the turn, plus an Angel of Protection.
Right.
And I was like, I wish I had Pick to Pieces in my deck, I'll tell you what. Obviously my opponent knowing that Pick to Pieces is not a card that's widely played right now, so goes for this line and just basically takes it home from there. The game was, I'd say I was probably maybe slightly ahead before then, but just absolutely took the game away from me. And then
did you play any 7?
I played I made some changes between day 2. I ended up there's 2 shreds in the list that Xavier was playing. I didn't like the shreds, so I took those out. I changed some of the blues to play some of the Art of Desire Mind, which I think was a great card for the weekend that a lot of people are playing. And then I put in a Blanche and a Snag into my list, basically.
So you had 1/7.
I had 1/7 and my 3 6s. So that matchup, I think, it is. If you have poppers, I think it's very good for you. If you don't have poppers, it's quite close. Like if you don't have the additional poppers outside of the CNCs. So I'm 1-2. I'm like, right. This is clearly not. I can rally, but I was thinking, man, this is not. Is this, maybe my Flesh and Blood career's over. Maybe I'm just too washed up, Pankaj, at this point. Maybe it's all over.
Yeah, you come into the booth once and then just like, damn, can't play the game anymore. That's how it is, man.
Luckily, we don't let you back out, or so maybe we will let you back out at one point. We'll see. I actually end up going over the next 10 rounds 9-1, so not too bad. I managed to.
So sick.
I think I won 8 rounds in a row to be putting myself back in contention to potentially top 8. Eventually lose a mirror on day 2, and then just win out the rest to cash. I had a great last round. I got to play Aggro Blaze himself, Pankaj, in the last round. Zach, I got paired into Zach on. Was he playing?
He's on Victor, right?
He's playing Victor. Yeah, he's playing Victor. We got paired up in the last round. We had an awesome game, honestly. It was so fun. We were both locked for cash at that point, but both potentially playing for top 16, of course. So we're like just having fun, yarning, having a great game back and forth. A very close game as well, honestly. It was a very cool game, the way it kind of ended with like a sort of almost third cycle, I think. It was awesome. He was like at the point of just his Tropeldani almost coming every hand, right? Like he's just like smashing gold out, drawing into the hands he potentially needs to be able to just go wide with Rousey Ancients and stuff like that. I'm back to my pitch stack of kind of finishing cards of Justin Nick and this sort of stuff. So it was a very cool game. Shout out to Aggro Blaze. If you haven't checked out any of his content, he does stream. I think most or a lot of days of the week, streams Talishar, which is awesome, and he's just a cool dude. So check it out.
And then how did you end up in the end?
So I ended up 10-3, and I just bubbled top 16. So I finished 17th because I had lost two rounds earlier on in the event. So unfortunately, just missed out. And they changed the cash break again so that top 16 was slightly more. So it was a little bit, a little bit of a letdown at the end. But all in all, I thoroughly enjoyed my event. I said it was relevant playing the mirror. I ended up playing 7 mirrors over the weekend, which makes sense, right? It was the most played deck. I went 5-2, so I'm glad I played some mirrors the day before to understand that matchup a little bit more. That definitely helped. So yeah.
Was Slippy the most played at the calling as well?
Yes, it was. Okay. Yeah. I reckon Slippy cracks the most played. So that was my event. Honestly, I mean, didn't day 2 of the Pro Tour, which is always very disappointing, of course. Ended up after a pretty poor start in the calling. Also, I think I lost to a Jarl early on, and I think had I understood that matchup, or had I actually played that matchup, I might have been able to win it. I also think one of my mirrors I didn't play particularly well, so a little bit disappointed with myself on that front. But considering I kind of picked up the deck after only a dozen or so games in the weeks before, and sort of learnt a lot of the end games and things like that as I went along through the weekend, I was pretty happy with my play in the end, and finishing 17th.
I think 17th at the calling, especially with how recently you picked up the deck, is really solid.
Yeah, no, I was happy with it. So
Awesome.
That was my weekend. And yeah, I got to play against one of your teammates, actually. I got to play against Ingen Zhang in the second to last round. He's on Team Street War 4.
Oh, nice. Yes, he is.
So yeah.
He was in Gravy, yes.
He was in Gravy.
Yeah, he was in Gravy.
He was on Gravy.
And second last round of the calling, is what you're saying.
Yeah, second to last round. Yeah, we played in the second to last round. Yeah. There was
nice.
I played against 3 Gravies, I think, over the weekend. A lot more Slippy than Gravy. And then I played against some interesting. I played against a Phi on day 1 at the calling, man. That was pretty interesting.
Okay.
Didn't see it.
Calling. The calling top 8 looked pretty diverse.
The calling top 8 was super diverse. Auxilio made top 8, right?
Yes, and a Jarl as well.
Yeah, very cool top 8. So, anyway, should we take a look? We made some prediction. That's our weekend. That's our recaps.
Yes. So before we actually review predictions, we probably should have done this earlier, but I do want to shout out the winners over the weekend.
Yeah,
we
just that
definitely
thing.
need to do that. We're like, let's recap our events, but we should shout out the winners. So obviously shout out to Shirewu for winning the entire event on some fantastic Gravy play. Honestly, watching him pilot Gravy gave me some vibes, like similar vibes that I got when I was watching Arthur Trahe pilot Dromai at PTLA, where I was like, this guy
Just knows what's up.
gets this deck. Like he just gets this more than anyone else does. So Shirewu would just huge shout out to him. Also, I mean, it was so hyped to see a Singaporean win the entire event.
Yeah, of course.
When we were pulling out the top 8, everyone's nationalities on there. There were 3 French guys in the top 8, by the way. So oh my god, shout out France as well. Like shout out the France Fab PCG community. But yeah, there's like one lone Singaporean, and I was like, come on, this Proto's in Singapore. We need a Singaporean to win the event, and he freaking went ahead and did it. It was awesome. The whole hall like exploded.
Yeah.
Like when Enki gave him the fist bump. It was so good. It was such an emotional moment as well for like everyone there. It was great. And then of course shout out to Shoma Yamamura as well for winning the calling on Ira. Had a very funny finals against Michael Fung, I would say. Again, the VOD for that is on the YouTube channel. It was interesting. Sensors, a really good card. Everyone go pick up 3 copies of Sensor.
Yep.
It was kind of funny. And I actually don't know who won the Battle Hardened. It was an LL Battle Hardened, right?
It was. I believe it was won by. It's a great question. I can't remember who won it. It was a name that I was familiar with. I remember sort of looking. I will see if we can. We'll look at that. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to it. I'll find out who won. It was Naib.
Oh yes. Oh my god. Yes, it's Naib. Yes. On Ira, right?
Ira.
Yes.
Yeah. So Ira winning 2 things.
Oh yes. So those were with the winners from the weekend. Solid stuff. Sure. It's so interesting. By the way, for those who don't know, for boys, for Singaporean boys, you have to do 2 years of mandatory military service once you turn 18. And Shure is still doing that right now. He's about to what we call ORD, which is your operationally ready date. It's like when you end the 2 years mandatory military service. He's about to ORD, I think this week or next week.
Oh wow.
But yeah, he's like still doing his mandatory military service and just comes on his weekend and wins a freaking Pro Tour. It's so awesome.
And I think recently he had another result, right? Was it top 8 of nationals? I feel like I've seen the name recent, like never before until recently, but seen recently that name.
Singapore Nationals. I believe he top 8'd the Singapore Nationals this year.
Yeah, awesome. That's amazing, and yeah, just a very cool top 8. Obviously, France putting 8 players into the top 8 is very cool. But yeah, should we talk about our predictions? Because we can start with
now. Let's go back and do the predictions.
Yeah, we didn't predict a Singaporean winner. Shame on you, Pankaj, for not predicting a Singaporean winner. But we did predict. You respectively had Michael Hamilton on Gravy, and Michael Hamilton on Gravy did top 8, and I said Arthur Trahe, and Arthur Trahe also top 8'd, but ultimately our picks did not get there. But I think that's a pretty good hit rate that we both picked 2 of the top 8 players.
They were close for sure. Yeah, and I think both of them had quarterfinals against Gravy, and Hamilton lost to Enki, and then Arthur Trehe lost to Shure. So
Yeah.
they both had Gravy mirrors in their quarterfinals, and unfortunately lost those.
Winning deck, you of course called Gravy Bones. You definitely win that one.
Yeah, I mean there were 4 of them in the top 8 too, so you know.
Yeah, you've said that. What's more OP, Gravy or the French? That's what we need to figure out by the end of this pod. I guess by numbers, Gravy slightly pips the French, as it turns out.
I guess.
Trap deck, you said Syndra. I'll give it to you. I'm not sure Syndra, if you look at the class constructed win rates, was actually a trap for the event, but obviously one deck in the top 8. I think I flip flopped. I think I said Verdance in the end, or I actually need to go back and have a look. I was flipped. Maybe it's a reflection of just how much I was struggling with choosing a deck. Is like I don't even know what's bad. I don't even know what I shouldn't be playing at this point.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I think I flip flopped. I think yeah. So I said Syndra at first, but then when you said Syndra was your pick for winning deck, I doubted myself, and I kind of flipped to Prism as well, who kind of also did end up.
I think Prism was the trap.
A weaker pick.
Yeah, I think Prism was actually the trap. Prism had a terrible weekend.
Going back real quick to the one Syndra in top 8, though, shout out to Nathaniel for just being such a fun person to watch on stream.
Yeah,
he's just like constantly bantering with his opponent and stuff. It was just really fun.
I love when people are enjoying playing. Like, obviously everyone expresses it in different ways, right? I'm sure almost every player we see on stream, they're enjoying playing Flesh and Blood, but everyone enjoys it in different ways and for different reasons, right? And I think it's just so cool to see someone so animated and enjoying their Flesh and Blood and just being so excited to be there, I think, which is so cool. Metagame. We each had the top 3. We said it in different orders. Neither of us picked Slippy as the top deck, though. We either had it second or third. But we did sort of talk about how those 3 decks were going to be the most played. I don't think we didn't pick that Slippy, that one was going to be so far in front, right? Slippy was 22% of the meta, while the others in that bracket were, I think, like 13% of the meta. So Slippy quite significantly the most popular deck. But I think overall we kind of got the top 3 right there. The one that we did miss, though, was Dash.io. Dash.io was the 4th most played deck.
Yeah, I think it was over Prism, right? Like, I think...
Yeah, sorry, fifth most. Verdance, which we did say was going to be top 5, and then Dash.io took out the Prism slot that we had sort of said was the 5 most played decks for the weekend.
Well, it was close. I think it was like 1 or 2 off from the Prism. It was like basically tied, it feels like. But yes, we did miss focusing on IO as much as we did the other 5, for sure.
Yeah, I know you brought it up in the pod last week, though, and I think I was surprised to see how many people picked it up. One of my local players from Sydney, I was sitting next to him in one of the calling rounds, and he was like, "Oh, this is my 3rd IO mirror I've played." I'm like, "That's crazy."
She has a surprising amount of game into Slippy. I feel like on the surface you'd be like, "Oh, this is like terrible for Dash.io," but the fridge, man, that fridge is scary.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree. I mean, it can definitely win. I will grant you that. It can definitely win, but I don't think it's
more game
good.
than what you expect. Like, when I say surprising, I mean I thought this would be not a game, but it is a game. So yeah,
yeah, that's fair. I actually wonder what IO's win rate into Gravy was. Apparently, it was 65% in the PT, which is interesting. So maybe I guess that's why people were picking it up. I guess, and also it's definitely good into Verdance, I think, from memory.
Yeah, I'm his favorite into Verdance, which is also slightly surprising. I thought Verdance would be able to fatigue it, but
yeah.
Lots of, I think probably just too many 2 blocks.
Yeah, I think so. Grenades. I think just the current lists are going to struggle a little bit to keep out the boom grenades, potentially. We talked about best strategy. You just snapped off Gravy, which seems pretty fair. I was like, maybe Fatigue's good if someone can find the right strategy. I didn't necessarily think that Fatigue was good into Gravy, but I was like, there might be an angle that someone could find. No one found it, or it doesn't exist. I don't know, one or the other. So yeah, you definitely take that one.
Yeah, and I still think the best strategy is Gravy. It's curious you brought up the Fatigue angle. So I was speaking to obviously a whole bunch of pro players over the weekend. And one thing I would want to bring up, which someone told me, and I'm not gonna like quote them because I didn't like ask someone I can actually say that I want to say it. I'll just say it's one of the players on Team Armory. So it's like the team that they all brought Gravy except Sam Sutherland, who brought Dash.io, which is really cool. He said Gravy reminds him of Chain in the sense that when Chain first came out, people thought you can just fatigue Chain if you're like a decent blocking deck, or
Yeah.
like whatever. And then it slowly came to light that if the Chain knows what they're doing, it is the most unfatigable deck there is, pretty much.
Yep.
This is exactly what he said. He said this is the same thing as Gravy. He was like, he told me he felt like he had to play Gravy because it was just like the far and above the best thing to be doing, and it's like Chain, and that people try to fatigue you, and then you will just destroy them if you know what you're doing. And actually, Shu Rui Wu also said that. He was saying, he was playing the Swiss rounds, like day 2 of Swiss. Some Slippy was trying to fatigue him, and he was like, I just pitch stack, chart the high seas with back alley breakline and an ally, and I blew the guy up. It's just like, if the Gravy knows what they're doing, you cannot fatigue this deck.
I agree.
It puts up 20 damage a turn with allies. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. I do think there might be. I think we said this, right? We're like, fatigue is not good into Gravy, like just in general. I do think there might be some sort of deck that does some sort of. So there was some strategies into Chain back in the day, and I think this is a great comparison that you sort of referenced from another player. But there were some strategies that sort of like pivoted to fatigue. So they would like push damage, almost like the fatigue by damage sort of aspect, right? Trade. Maybe it's a little bit different with allies, but I think you can trade into the allies, and then I think you can potentially pivot into fatigue. I just don't know, like, if there's a deck that's good enough into the rest of the meta to ever be viable that can do that right now. So you have to have a reason to do that, right?
There is, and that deck is actually also Gravy. If you go watch the finals, like Sherway's finals, it's basically
he does
what
do
he
that.
did, right? He's gonna play a normal game, and eventually he's like, oh, okay, I fell behind in tempo. I'm just gonna try and fatigue him now, and then he fatigued Enki.
Yeah. I think there's people were saying maybe Slippy could be that deck, but I don't think that's the right strategy to take with Slippy. What I found interesting though is that all of my Gravy opponents presented more than 60 cards into me as Slippy. They played Humperdinck into me. They were really, like, people were worried. Like, I would say they're worried because maybe they're like, well, I can just beat Fatigue if they fatigue me. But they were set up to make sure they could beat Fatigue if people did try and fatigue them. Which it does come at a cost, right? It's not free to do that.
Yeah. Openings can be awkward. Yeah, we actually saw it in top 8, I believe. Was that a top 8 or in the Swiss day 2? I remember seeing a Humperdinck get banished to a Slippy's Bonds of Attraction.
Yeah, okay.
And then they tried. Oh, yeah, I think it was top 8, and then they tried to fatigue, but then
it didn't work out.
Gravy still won.
Yeah. I don't think fatigue is particularly good. One thing that's quite interesting. We talk about Humperdinck. Dude, I had a crazy game. I feel like the listeners out there, you'll enjoy this. My opponent is playing Gravy, and I'm on Slippy, of course, and the calling. This is to make day 2. We're both at X2 at the time. My opponent was Dairon, chooses to go first, which I think was actually something a lot of Gravies were choosing to do, potentially not knowing whether people would try and fatigue them or not. And presents 64 cards into me. I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay, so they're clearly worried about fatigue. My opponent proceeds to discard Humperdinck, right, on turn 0. I'm like, oh, right, they are, like, prepared. Well, lucky for them, they got rid of that crappy Humperdinck on turn 0 that's not going to do anything in this matchup because I'm going face. I'm going full. I'm going to try and kill them. Resolves Humperdinck on turn 0. Does manage to play it on turn 0.
Okay.
And I have to use my whole hand to basically clear it. I can't let this thing. They've got a free Humperdinck, right, on turn 0. Like, I've got to clear this thing as much as my strategy is. That I don't. If this Humperdinck stays around, don't worry about fatigue. I'm dying. I'm getting hit for 11 off 2 cards. I'm getting 2 card at 11, right? So I have to clear this, and I maybe get to leak like 2 damage. What do you think my opponent does on the next turn, Pankaj?
He resolves the second Humperdinck.
He resolves the second Humperdinck and comes in at my face for 11 damage while doing it. I'm like, what is going on? Because it was able to buy the space with the first Humperdinck to resolve the second Humperdinck, right? And then just comes in for 11. And I'm like, oh, this is not going well for me. I don't feel good about this game. And yeah, ultimately I then have to clear that one. And I do manage to, like, in a very close game, to actually win it in the end. But I was just like, what has just happened? It's my second turn and 2 Humperdincks have been played against me so far in this game. And I've taken 11 damage off one of them. It was crazy. I thought you might enjoy that story, my Humperdinck story.
For sure.
So yeah, I guess going back to the fatigue thing and the strategy, I agree. One thing I want to say is Slippy was the most played deck, and I think I was a little bit behind the 8 ball on certain things, but having played more with Slippy, having sort of I thought a lot about Slippy, and I spoke to Dan a lot about Slippy over the weekend, plus some other players that I really respect, and just was picking their brain about like why they played Slippy and what they thought were some of the angles. Because a lot of people were sort of saying to me coming to the event, they're like, oh, I think Slippy's slightly favored into Gravy, and I had sort of found it kind of slightly Gravy favored. But I think over the weekend, I definitely learned a lot about Slippy itself, and I think Slippy is, I mean, I was wrong. Like, I talked weeks ago at the start of national season, I did not think Arachne Slip Through the Cracks was a good hero at this point in time in the meta. And to an extent, I think that was because I thought that Slippy was not good into a wide field. And I think the builds, and particularly, I'm going to shout out Xavier McLean, because I think the build that he played at his nationals, and I think has been pretty widely adopted since then. It's literally the 80 cards I submitted to the PT. It's 75 of the cards I played at the calling. People were using a lot of that base. It's so clean, and I think you just have so much game into a wide field that I was so surprised. And I think actually that Gravy matchup is, it's pretty close to 50-50. I don't think it is necessarily Gravy favored. I just was surprised about how much power you could, like how many crazy like in-game sequences you could set up with Slippy, and that's before you even think you factor in just like naturally drawing bonds turns and things like this.
I think the data supports that Gravy versus Slippy is 50%. Actually, if you look at Fab Blazing for Pro Tour Singapore across all 3 days, it looks like it's exactly 50% for Slip Through the Cracks into Gravy, which I think makes sense. It was my take going in as well. I was like, people are like, oh, I'm playing Slippy, so I beat Gravy. I'm just like, do you actually beat Gravy? I'm not sure you're beating like Pro Tour level Gravies with this deck consistently to be like, this is why you're bringing the deck.
Yeah.
But I suppose even is still fine because you do beat Syndra. I will challenge the point about Slippy being good into a wide meta. I think it's specifically because this wide meta doesn't have a lot of Earth. I think if the wide meta consisted of like Florians running around, I don't think he's good into a wide meta. And like if you look, his win rate into Verdance is pretty garbage.
Yeah.
But yeah, if the wide meta doesn't have a lot of Earth because it's being shut out by something else, then yes, there's a lot of sheer power in that deck for sure.
Yeah, I mean things like Dash.io, Prism, the Guardians, like Victor in particular, I think is actually a good matchup after playing that matchup, I guess, once, so maybe I can't speak too soon. But, the Iras, the Kasais of the world. I mean, Yal, like he does, from the PT, did have a positive win rate into Yal. Interesting name. It's a small sample size, right? So it's always hard to take these things away, but it is at a high level. The Earth thing, I agree. Like, it is not favored. It is way closer than I thought, though, for Slippy. And I think that just comes down to the power of some of these turns that you can set up. Like, you can sort of like... The thing is your opponent sends a felling at you, and every card in your deck blocks 3. So you're just like, okay, well, I block 3. Your opponent, sends these other big... It's the same thing as Guardian. You're like, okay, I throw my hand on this turn. Like, there's just so much power in the deck that you can always set up different things later in the game or at certain points of the game. Set up a particular Arsenal card, set up a Justin Nick, set up a what's the yellow card that lets you pick a card from the graveyard? Oh my goodness, take out the mantle. I'm blanking today. You can just set up these turns. So I was just surprised. And I think, at the fear of poking the bear of Pankaj here, Slippy had a better win rate over the weekend than Gravy Bones. It was, I think, the most played deck for a reason.
Like, yes, technically, yes, Slippy did have 54%, Gravy had 53.6%.
Yeah, that is more.
I mean, I feel like it's close
that is more.
enough.
It's close. It's basically the same. It's basically the same.
It is more.
It's basically the same, though. But so what I'm saying is, I think to your point about the two decks of the format, I think they, the thing that like Gravy, you chose Gravy as like the strategy. You definitely blew me out of the water on that one. I think where I land now is that like I think Slippy and Gravy are both very good, and I'm interested to explore where they each go from here. Gravy, I think, probably ultimately ends up doing better in a wider meta potentially. But hey, Syndra's still around, and as the kind of data shows, there's a pretty tough matchup for Gravy Bones. Of course, not unwinnable, but definitely a tough matchup. And I think Syndra will continue to be a top 3 played deck at least. I feel like,
but by that logic, it's like you can say a similar thing about Slippy and Verdance, right? Where it's like, oh, Verdance is still around, and then Slippy has a bad matchup. So they both have like this bad matchup, where like Gravy's bad matchup was like Syndra, and Slippy's bad matchup was Verdance. But I do agree with you. I mean, I was saying as well, it did feel like as we got later into day 2, it was shaping more and more as like, okay, Slippy and Gravy this is a 2-deck format, and you should be on Slippy or on Gravy. it's shaping up to be that way, and which to some extent sort of makes it more easy to find an angle into the format.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
previously it sort of felt like you had to find an angle into like the top 5, right? You had to find an angle into Gravy, Slippy, Syndra, Verdance, and Prism, Dash.io, whatever. But now it's like, oh, if you want to find that angle, like the Uzuri angle in Amsterdam, you just need to find the angle into Slippy and Gravy, kind of. Like, kind of. It's not exactly the same, but if you get what I'm saying, where it is shaping up to be, these two decks are far enough, are above, just a cut above the rest.
Yeah, I mean, what that deck is, remains to be seen. If I take just the Pro Tour data, apparently it's Riptide and Rhinar, and that's it. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
I think Riptide is actually a pretty interesting angle. I mean, we saw Chris Ali and Alex 4.
Yeah, they
Riptide.
played it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's.
It was. Yeah.
There's more to come from this meta, I think, and it's going to evolve. But yeah, I actually Fang might be interesting, to be honest.
I don't really believe in Fang. I feel like Fang is just asking. I don't know. It's like you're asking to like, does your deck give you 3 fealty by turn 2 or 3? Otherwise, you
scoop them up. I don't disagree, Pankaj. I don't disagree. Honestly, I don't think that hero is very good.
I will point out something very interesting that I saw Syndra's bring in, which I guess Fang has an angle to, into Slippy specifically, is Hunt to the Ends of Wraith, which I think is a very, very interesting tech card that they have access to, given the prominence of Slippy. So I don't like. I think that is, how to say it, it's worth exploring. It's not. I don't know if it's itself like powerful enough to overcome that matchup, but I think that was. It was fun to see that card. It seemed to just be like a limited card to actually come out and have relevance in CC.
Yeah, our group was on that card, and when I played Sean on day 1 at the PT, it was definitely a factor in that matchup. That card is good. It's also a good a good Codex target as well. So
it's like Oath of Loyalty, except you can play non-draconic stuff for the rest of your turn.
I know.
And it marks them. So it's like generates a fealty too for like Fang. It's kind of
really good.
And like for Fang especially,
yeah,
you really like to have a draconic chain link at the start that's not the dagger. So you can immediately get his like extra effects on the second link. So that's like.
Yeah. We spoke a little bit about results, right? Maybe we can just quickly touch on. So we spoke about Arachne being the most played deck, of course, Gravy and Syndra in there, and then this Verdance, Dash.io, Prism being the next 3 sort of group of decks. Then we saw some interesting, some wizards really coming into the fray. Kano, Acilio was well represented with 13 copies at the PT. Victor well represented as well, and then a wide variety of heroes in that sort of 10-ish range, which was quite interesting. The conversion, when you look at it, of course, this includes your limited portion as well. Gravy had the highest conversion rate of the top decks. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? I think a lot of the best players in the world chose to play Gravy. It's obviously also one of the best decks. So when you combine both the limited and the CC side, it doesn't surprise me. Marionette, interestingly, had a really high conversion rate to day 2 as well, of the lesser played heroes. So I think just those are some of the interesting things that happened. And then, of course, when we get to top 8, you see 4 Gravy, 2 Arachne slip through the cracks, 1 Syndra, 1 Verdance. It was the top 4 decks represented once we got to top 8 at the end of the day as well. So, I think an interesting event, a wide-ish meta that coming into it from national season that really started to coalesce and come together for what was this event and a Gravy finals, like you say, in the end, and a Gravy winner.
I do want to come back to your point about like a lot of the top players being on Gravy. I think that is the other aspect of this that's perhaps being a little bit lucky. I mean, throughout national season, I feel like we touched on that a little bit, where it's like the decks need to coalesce, the players need to get better at this deck because it is a complicated deck.
For sure.
And so like right now we're at this point where kind of like, ooh, Gravy and Slippy share the same win rate or like a similar win rate. But I do still wonder whether there's more space for the Gravy win rate to go up as the players the top of the Gravy players, the top of the player echelon who brought Gravy are probably reaching the ceiling of the deck. They were at the Pro Tour maybe. But there's all the ones below them. They're kind of just like, okay, what happens once they start getting getting better at the deck too, right? I mean, kind of like the whole chain thing, but you could fatigue a bad chain, but once the average chain player became good enough that you couldn't fatigue them, this win rate just sort of skyrocket even further.
Yeah, once Arsenal Pass published their chain, deck guide and taught everyone how to play against Fatigue and easily beat it, it just skyrocketed, right, Pankaj?
I don't remember this. I think that might have been before my
But
time.
we were like getting called crazy because every week in the pod, me and Brendan would be like, you just like chain is just not fatigable. Like fatigue is a laugh, it's a joke. Like honestly, when people try and fatigue you, and then people are like, no, and then eventually people are like, yeah, you're right. I think to your point, right? I look at the win rates from the calling, and Gravy had a sub 50 win rate in the calling, right? So I think it speaks to the point of the best players in the world. And yeah, look, there were some fantastic players playing the calling as well, but it is an open event. It's very different to the Pro Tour. It's a below 50% win rate for Gravy in the calling versus a very high win rate in the PT, right? And I think that, to your point, sort of illustrates that players are still learning this hero. They're still going to get better with it. Of course, they might not have all had access to these hyper refined lists from some of the best teams in the world. So yeah, I agree with you. My only add-on, I think, would be that I think Slippy still has some stuff to give. I think that I just thought that deck was kind of straight up simple, and it isn't. I think there's just so many there's just so much, I think, inevitability, honestly, with the power cards in that deck, which is quite interesting. That it's actually quite hard to target as well. So I will eat humble pie on that one, being wrong about Slippy.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, you target Slippy by playing Earth, but it feels like it.
Yeah. And you still have to be proactive. You still have to be proactive, because if you're not, like Slippy, you will give Slippy time to just like find ways to dunk on you. And get value, like you can get some insane value out of flick knives, right? So like if you allow Slippy the time to do that, like I was talking to Nia at one point, and Nia's like, I think I got like 10 to like upwards of 15 value off this flick knives. I'm like, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, you're flicking kisses, you're flicking daggers, and making them back with Calistras, buying them back with like pick up the point.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Build
your own Syndra, except with disruption as well.
Exactly. So yeah, is there any other heroes that you want to briefly talk about or sort of spotlight? I think Acilio very interesting, honestly. I just think the problem with that deck is that it's just such a glass cannon.
Yeah, I want to take a look at Acilio's win rate into Gravy. Looks like at the Pro Tour there were only 5 games played, but it looks like there's 60% win rate into Gravy. I think people were expecting Acilio should have a decent win rate into Gravy.
Yeah.
Into Slippy, it seems like it's like 45%. It's like just under.
Same in the calling as well.
Which I think
basically the same two sets.
Which I think bodes well actually for Acilio to like we speak about glass cannon, but there are what I have found about Slippy is that yes, it's like people are like, he's aggro with disruption, but he does have quite a few turns where they send stuff at me and I don't care about it.
Yep.
They're like, is an Art of Desire body into an infiltrate. I'm like, cool, dude. Like you send that kind of turn into Acilio, and then they have that hand, and you just get blown up, right? Like they have the Gardener Flash, and that's what you did. You're getting your card advantage. You're doing your good mid-range value into a combo deck, and it just did nothing. Like I don't care. Oh, you save a Bloodshed Kiss of Death me, and I'm holding Gardener Flash. Okay, dude. Yeah, have your card draw. Flick the Kiss of Death at me. Whatever. You're getting 40 on my turn. So I think it does bode well for Acilio that you can still have like a 45% win rate into Slippy, positive into Gravy as well.
Yep.
Syndra is rough, but if Syndra goes down, if this ends up being a little bit closer to like a coalescing of the top of Slippy and Gravy, I think Acilio is interesting. I'll put Dash.io in a similar spot. You're a little worse into Slippy, but a little better into Gravy, I would say. It's a little bit more polarized that way.
Mm-hmm.
They both are like decent into Verdance. Both are, and Dasher is better into Syndra than Acilio is into Syndra, I would say. At least that's what the data suggests.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
I put both of them in that same sort of aggro combo spot, right? They're both kind of playing that role. They're like aggro combo, but like Dash.io is less combo, more aggro, and Acilio is more combo, less aggro. So
yeah, I don't, honestly, there's nothing else for me really at the moment. Like I think you've got to, if we're going to a Battle Hardened next weekend, the following weekend, you've got to have a really good reason to not be playing Gravy Bones or Arachne Slips Through the Cracks, I think. And you've got to have found it, and also be prepared to still have a good proactive deck, right? This is something we've been speaking about. Why were those 5 decks that we spoke about, Gravy, Syndra, Slippy, Verdance, Prism, the 5 decks that we spoke about for this entire high seas, competitive season, nationals into the PT, was because of the proactiveness that they could push, right? The activeness of their plans. And I think you've got to find the hero that's potential, or a strategy that's potentially good into Slippy and Gravy Bones, while still being proactive enough that you can be troubling the Verdances, the Prisms of the world, the Guardians of the world, right? The Iras of the world. That deck is going to show up after Shoma's win as well. So yeah, it's not easy. I'm definitely interested to see where we go from here.
We should actually talk about Ira a little bit. What do you think of that deck? Do you think... Yeah.
So I think stats show that it has a good Gravy matchup, which makes sense to me. But
but I don't think its Slippy matchup is amazing, right?
No, it's not. I think it's very good for Slippy, and I think also your matchup into Gravy is not as good as Syndra, for instance. So I'm not convinced on Ira. Like, I definitely played some games into and with Ira in testing, and quickly thought it was definitely not the deck to play. I'm more interested in Katsu than I am Ira.
Interesting. Expand on that. Why so?
I just think Katsu has more raw power. I think it's better into Syndra. I think it's better into Gravy as well. I think you're better into probably better into IO as well. I don't know. I just think it's a more powerful damage dealing deck, but it just might not be consistent enough to actually be viable. That's probably my...
I suppose it's kind of like we were talking about Accelio and Dash IO, and it feels like Katsu can maybe be in that similar spot, right? Where it's like you are sort of aggro combo in a sense, right? You're not Syndra type of aggro. You are the kind of aggro combo deck where when you draw like certain cards correctly, or you set up the thing correctly, and you get to actually knock a disruptor and do your thing, you do something that's honestly quite disgusting, right?
Yeah.
And if you like dishonor a Slippy or something, it's just kind of like, bro, like game's over, right? So it's like, So, okay, I guess I could see it. To me, it feels like I'm going to need a reason to play Katsu over Accelio or Dash IO if that's the strategy I'm trying to go for.
I think you need a
feel like
reason to
Accelio
play...
and Dash IO do the similar thing, but better.
I think you need a reason to play Katsu over Syndra, honestly. That's the thing you need, I think. Like, Syndra just has such a good Gravy and Verdance matchup, I think, that you've got to find your reason, honestly.
Do you think Syndra can do something to improve its Slippy matchup?
I think it can do a little bit to improve it, but yeah, not enough, I don't think. I mean, to be fair, it was 60% win rate, 62% win rate at the PT. It's not crazy favored. Honestly, in my testing, it felt maybe slightly more favored for Slippy. So yeah, maybe there is a few things it can do.
Do you think Verdance can do something about her Gravy man? Because I think Verdance and Syndra are still in the conversation, right? I mean, they did
they gotta
put
be
a copy each in the top 8. So it's like in the conversation, like we are sort of moving towards what seems to be like a 2-deck format, but Verdance and Syndra seem to be the closest to like, oh, maybe they can figure something out to like solve the other one of the two. Like Verdance good into Slippy, banned to Gravy, and Syndra good into Gravy, banned to Slippy. But yeah, do you think it's a take on Verdance that can maybe help with the Gravy?
I mean, people play the Teleshar build, right, where they play Teleshar under Gravy, and I just don't think it's good enough, but...
I mean, again, the Tasha thing was under the false assumption that you can fatigue a Gravy Bones, but it turns out you can't, right? So,
especially if they have any whiff of it, right? If they have any whiff that you might be presenting Teleshar, it's gonna be no good. So,
I mean, they don't even need a whiff in sideboarding, right? It's like the moment you flip up Teleshar, they know you're fatiguing them, and then they just pitch stack back alley break line with Char the High Seas and blow you up. Right.
But you still have to put,
it's like,
you still have to put some pressure on them, of course. But
yeah, they need to find some other strategy. I think something that is compelling. I've been seeing like getting more decomposed cards in the deck so you can come online way quicker, which basically nullifies like rigor mortises, which is kind of interesting. And like a heartbeat like clears the soul bones, like stuff like that. So
I could see it.
Yeah,
I'm just not convinced. I mean, the one thing I'll say for Verdance is that Earth is very powerful. Verdance has Storm Striders and also has Burn Bear. And Burn Bear is kind of an insane card. So I think Verdance is going to continue to be a presence because it's going to have great matchups into other areas of the field. And if Verdance honestly can find a strategy that is reliable into Gravy to get it to even 50%, even 55%, I think Verdance is probably the best deck in the format. So it's that close, right?
Yeah. Currently, it seems like Verdance into Gravy at the PT was 24% for Verdance. So yeah, they
people did not find it.
Need to improve on that for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, I think this format is is very interesting. We spoke about last week about, this being a format where how many decks are actually good. At the moment, it seems like 2 decks are very good, and we might find out some more about the other decks over the coming weeks. I don't necessarily hold out massive hope. I wouldn't be surprised at this point, honestly, if we get a little bit further down the road and LSS decide to make a hit to both Gravy and Arachne. Wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
I'd be surprised if they don't, actually.
Yep.
I'm going to start talking about some data over here. Gravy has gotten 133 Living Legend points since he came out. And he came out, just under 2 months ago? He came out the last, 30th May, right? So basically he had June and up till now, July. 133 points in the new system where he's getting them at half the rate. So if this was the old system, he would be a quarter of the way to LLing. And keep in mind, there hasn't been a ProQuest or RTN season. This is just off the back of Battle Hardens and Callings and the Pro Tour.
And Nationals.
Would have been quarter of the and Nationals. Would have been a quarter of the way to LLing. In less than 2 months. I see discussions online where people are like, oh, should Gravy get something banned? And I'm like, for me, it's not even a conversation of should. It's like, what are we banning from? And keep in mind also, a few months ago, they came out saying they want to be more proactive with the bans and all this kind of thing. So I'm just like, I think the time has come for us to see whether they're going to stick to their word and actually be more proactive with the bans. Because the numbers over here with just Callings and Nationals and PTs and already what would have been a quarter of the way to LL is just is it a conversation that this deck is overtuned?
What would you ban?
No, I mean, there's a lot of people are thinking about a Golden Tipple restriction, which I could see that. Like the Bonds treatment for Golden Tipple, where you can only play the red, for example.
Yeah.
Call to the Grave could be a hit. I actually don't think Call to the Grave would be a big enough hit at this point. Chart the High Seas. Swell. To me, Swell also feels like does the deck really need Belittle? I don't know.
I don't think it's enough to. I don't think Swell would be enough though. I'd be hitting something else before Swell for impact.
Yeah. What would you hit? Oh, no, do you think it should be hit?
Yeah. I think I'm fine.
Okay,
LSS have taken this philosophy of we're going to make proactive changes to the format. We're gonna, and I think that's fine. To me, that means that they need to potentially, if they feel that these heroes, like we feel that there's 2 clear best decks in the format, and we don't see a response, maybe say next week, for instance, that would mean hit something from Gravy, hit something from Slippy. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. What that would be, I think from Gravy, I can see a restriction on Golden Tipple. Call to the Grave, I think, is potentially interesting. I think they also want to minimize potential disruption to the Armory deck, right? So that might become a consideration of what you actually take from that. I think if it comes to Arachne Slip Through the Cracks, that's a more interesting conversation. I mean, take up the mantle, maybe.
I was gonna say take up the mantle too. It just
it just produces so many insane end games, honestly.
Yeah, Bonds of Agony with Go Again is already really, really strong. It's insane when they send a double trouble at you with Go Again. You're like, oh, okay, I have a turn to breathe. Then suddenly it's like, no,
Bonds.
you don't have a turn to breathe. It just feels like the counterplay isn't quite super exist on the other side. I did look up the next BNR. It's actually September 1st.
Yeah.
Which to me feels a little slow. It's like another month and a half of this thing. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if this counts as an emergency ban sort of needed sort of thing. But when they did say they're gonna be more proactive, I was surprised that the next one's actually 1st of September. Like that long after the PT, like a month and a half of the PT is like the next BNR.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's mostly Battle Hardens, right? Before we go to Mastery Set and Pro Quest season, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few callings as well. Calling Kansas is next month.
Yeah, I heard you're playing Calling Kansas.
Yes, I'm playing Calling Kansas. So,
that's super exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to go, and I need to figure out my deck.
Slippy.
Yeah, probably not. And I believe Mastery Set will be out by then, will be legal
nice,
for Calling Kansas. I mean, I don't know. You tell me a Guardians thing is coming out in a meta where Gravy is top deck, I'm kind of like they're gonna need to print something
Yeah, I'm not very excited about that.
serious like ally hate for that to have an impact. So
Yeah, so you're going to be at Kansas, which is very exciting. Looking forward to that calling. Excited that you're going to be out there playing as well, heading to the calling there. I'm going to be out playing as well, calling. I'm just thinking, what's next for us? Calling Auckland is in 3 weeks' time. I'm going to be there jamming Welcome to Wraith. Hopefully
Alpha,
jamming.
welcome to Raid.
Well, draft. Got to make the draft first. I'm going to have to put some reps in to refresh myself on Welcome to Wraith sealed, and it's 30 card limit. So we've got the new with the old down there at calling Auckland, and then
That is so cool. I forgot about that. That's awesome.
very cool. So I'll be recapping all of that, and then of course you're off to Kansas. I think it must be the week after. When is Kansas? Is it the end of August?
It's mid-August.
Mid-August. So it's a similar time. So yeah, you'll be out in Kansas. So we'll definitely recap our events and how we set up for those. The deck you play, of course, for Classic Constructed, and how limited Welcome to Wraith goes. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
You got this. I mean, you had a lot of practice on Limited Welcome to Wraith. I'm sure it'll come right back to you. It's like riding a bike, right? It's like
Hopefully.
you just get back on it and you're like, okay, cool.
30 cards though.
That.
That will be the adjustment.
The 30 card thing is that's that.
Yeah, we'll see. Right. Anything else to add before we wrap up the pod, Pankaj?
No. I think that's all from me. Shout out again to Shurewu for winning PT. That was awesome.
1000% congratulations. So cool to see someone from a Singaporean take down Pro Tour Singapore, and of course shout out to Shoma for the calling win as well. Very, very well deserved. That is it for episode 223 of Arsenal Pass. That is Pro Tour Singapore done. It's all done and dusted. We were there. Pankaj was in the booth. I was making a poor attempt to play. But you know what? I bounced back, rallied back for the calling, Pankaj. I had a good time, made some cash. It's all good. And now we look forward to, like you say, Master Set Guardian, calling Kansas, calling Auckland, Super Slam after that, Pro Quest season, World Championships. There's still so much more to happen in the second half of the year. And we'll be here to, talk about it all, yap about it all, as we always do. But for now, until the next episode, we'll see you next time.